All right, so we're going to start by defining a ratio. A ratio is a comparison of two numbers, two quantities, okay? A comparison of two numbers or two quantities. There are several different ways that we can write a ratio. I'll tell you which way I prefer. It doesn't mean you have to do it that way. It's just that's the way I usually do it. But one of them is writing some number A, and then we put the word 2 in between, and then the other number B. So you're comparing two numbers like 2 to 3. Okay, you could actually put the word 2 in between, and it's not writing, is it? There we go. Another way we can do it is we can do the number A and then a colon and B. And then the third way you can do it is as a fraction. So A over B. And that's usually the way that I do it, okay? When I write ratios, I tend to do it as a fraction just because that's the way I've always done it, okay? Any of those would work. The thing we have to be very careful about is with ratios, you have to pay attention to how they're asking for it. They could ask for, like we're doing instruments, they could ask for whatever they ask for first has to be listed first, okay? Whatever they ask for second has to be listed second. And the one thing we need to keep in mind is that for every ratio, we can simplify them, okay? So ratios can always be simplified. If it can simplify, you need to simplify. That means if the numbers have anything in common, you can divide them both by that number and write a more simplified ratio. Is everybody ready? All right, so it says a music store has 40 trumpets, 39 clarinets, 24 violins, 51 flutes, and 16 trombones in stock. I'm going to teach you how to use your calculator to help you simplify these ratios. All right, so the first ratio, excuse me, that they are wanting us to write is comparing the number of trumpets to the number of violins. So again, whichever one is listed first is what we have to put first. How many trumpets does it say that we have? Okay, so we're going to put 40, and I'm writing mine as fractions just because that's the way I'm used to writing them. You can write it with the word 2, or you can write it with the colon in between if you want. And then how many violins do we have? 24? We need to reduce if it can be reduced. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you how to do this in your calculator. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more work. Specifically, when our number at the top is bigger than the number at the bottom, we're going to have to do a couple of extra steps. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to turn your calculator on, obviously. I want you to type in 40. And then you're looking for the fraction key. It says, it looks like this. It is A and then B over C. That's your fraction key. So when I refer to your fraction key, that's what you're looking for. It is the second row over, third one down. Does everybody see it? Even those of you using your old calculators, they're just like mine, so it's going to be the same thing. So you're going to hit that fraction key, and you notice it puts like a backwards L. Okay. Then you're going to hit your number 24, and then hit equals. And anytime the number at the top is bigger, you're going to end up with something that looks like this. Is that what you all have on your screen? Okay. Well, that's a mixed number. That's 1 2/3. But our calculator can turn it to an improper fraction with 2 simple steps. Hit your second key first. Okay. And then you hit your fraction key again. And then equal. I guess that's 3 steps. So anytime you get a number that looks like this, you're going to hit second, hit your fraction key, and then hit equals again. And then it turned it into an improper fraction. Family, what is the reduced fraction? 5/3. So that would be my final answer. Okay. So the calculator can do all the reducing for the fractions for you, as long as you know how to use it. Okay with that? All right. Try the second one, flutes to clarinets. Flutes is listed first, so it's going to need to go on the top. Clarinets is listed second, so it goes on the bottom. And then you can use your calculator to make sure that that is reduced as much as it possibly can. Excuse me. Again, if your number at the top is bigger, you're going to end up with something that looks like this. So we're going to want to hit second, our fraction key, and equals again to get it into an improper fraction. How many flutes do we have? 51. How many clarinets? 39. So I'm going to do my fraction 51/39. I do get a mixed number, so I'm going to hit second, my fraction key, and equals again. And what is that reduced part? 17/13. So far, so good? All right, try the next two. Trombones to trumpets, and then violins to total instruments. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work for that one. Do the trombones to trumpets, and then do the violins to total instruments. How many trombones do we have? 16. And how many trumpets? 40. And if we put that in our calculator to reduce, it gives me a final ratio of 2/5, 2:5. Yep. Now for D, it's violins to total instruments. What do I have to do before I can write my ratio? Add all my instruments together. I need to figure out how many instruments I have all together. So I'm going to add 40, 39, 24, 51, and 16. And that gives me a total of 170. And how many violins? 24. So we're going to go 24/170. And then I can put that fraction in my calculator. And it will reduce it to be 12/85. Okay. Everybody good with ratios? Not too terribly difficult, right? Especially if you have a calculator that helps you do the reducing. All right, then the next kind of ratio that we're talking about is an extended ratio. An extended ratio is a comparison of three numbers or three quantities. And there is only one way that we can write an extended ratio, and that's with a colon in between. So we will do the first number A, colon, second number B, colon, third number C. And again, those can be reduced if you're writing them. Can't do that in the calculator, though, because you can't enter a three-piece fraction in your calculator. So far, so good. Okay. Now, we're going to use ratios to find angles of a triangle. Take a minute and read that first one. The ratio of two complementary angles is 3:7. What does complementary mean? 90. Okay, so remember that they're going to add up. Because of the complementary, they're going to add to equal 90. Now, here's where sometimes I lose people, but if you just kind of think about this the same every time. My ratio is 3 to 7. That has been simplified. So if we look back like at the ratio of 16 to 40, that's what it started out, right? And then we divided it by some number to get a smaller ratio. So we divided it by 8, right? Well, with this problem, my ratio ends up to be 3 over 7. I just don't know where I started because I don't know what I reduced it by. Okay, so this is how you're going to work these. Anytime you're given a question where you have complementary or supplementary angles and it gives you a ratio, I know it ends up at 3 over 7, but that's not where it started. It started with some bigger numbers. What I'm trying to figure out is what did I reduce each one of those by? Okay, when we don't know something, what do we call it? X. So this is what I'm going to do. For my first angle, it's going to be 3 times whatever I reduced it by. I just don't know what that is. So it's going to be 3 times X. For my second angle, it is going to be 7 times whatever I reduced it by, which is also 7X. Every time you're given a ratio like this, you're going to put X next to the number. Okay, 3 times whatever the ratio is, you're going to multiply each one of the numbers by X. So if my first angle is 3X and my second angle is 7X, I know they have to do what to equal 90? Add. So I'm going to take my first angle, maybe, plus my second angle, and I'm going to add them together, and I'm going to set that equal to 90. Then I'm going to solve this for X so I can find out what I actually reduced each one by. What is 3X plus 7X? 10X. So if 10X equals 90, what does X going to be? 9. So that means I reduced it by 9. Now 9 is not my answer. I need to know what my angles are. So what do you think I need to do with that 9? Yeah, I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to multiply it by 3 first. What's 9 times 3? 27, yep, there's one angle. And then I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to multiply it by 7. What's 7 times 9? Close. Not 62, 63. Do 27 and 63 add to give me 90? Yeah. So my original angles before I wrote my ratio is going to be 27 to 63. So if you think about this, writing a ratio 27 to 63, when you put that in your calculator, you're going to end up with 3 over 7. Does that make a little bit of sense? Okay. So with the second one there, this time what kind of angles are we dealing with? Supplementary. So we're going to do the same process with the exception of supplementary angles add to be 180. Okay, so you're going to represent your first and your second angle. What does it say my ratio is? 4 to 1. And so what am I going to put on either one of those? 4X and 1X, yep. Then because it says they're supplementary, I'm going to add those two together. I'm going to add 4X plus 1X. And this time I'm going to set it equal to 180. Solve that for X. Then plug that X back in to find out what your two angles are. The one issue I always have on this test and this quiz for this stuff is people find the X, but then they forget to plug it back in. So we're going to go 4X plus 1X, set it equal to 180 because it said it was supplementary this time. What's 4X plus 1X? 5X. And if I do 180 divided by 5, what does that give me? 36. And then again, just make sure you plug that 36 back in for each angle, the first one and the second one. So you're going to go 4 times 36 and 1 times 36. What is 4 times 36? 144. Okay, so one angle is 144. And then 1 times 36 is just 36. And then you can always double check. Do 144 and 36 add up to give us 180? Yeah, so then I know I got the answer right. You definitely will have questions like this on your test and your quiz. Okay, so you take your ratio, you put x with each one of them, you add it and you set it equal to whatever it says. Complementary is 90, supplementary is 180. You solve for x and you plug it back in. Anybody have any questions? Sorry, I'm looking at my, yeah, I see that. I'm looking at my work that I did, and I did the question wrong on the first one. I was like, that's not what we got, but well, the way we did. Come on. Sorry, it's not letting me try to connect. Next blank, we can start filling that in while I'm trying to figure. Is trying to connect. It's just not working really well. So for the proportions, the first blank, it says an equation. Fill in that first blank with equation. That states 2 ratios are equal. Okay, so that first sentence, an equation that states that 2 ratios are equal. And the way that's going to look with some variables, obviously, because we don't have specific numbers, it's going to be 1 ratio A to B is equal to a second ratio C to D. Okay, one fraction equal to another one. That's what a proportion is. Now, we've already dealt with some proportions, right? How do we solve a proportion? We cross multiply. So the cross product would be A times D is equal to B times C. Okay, it doesn't really matter which one you put first. You could put B times C first and then A times D, but you're just cross multiplying to solve proportions. And since we've already done this, I want you to do those 2 examples down there at the bottom. Solve both of those proportions, cross multiply and solve for x. You have a calculator in your hand. You can work for me. You can get a decimal or a whole number. When you do it, cross multiply, but set them equal to each other. So you should end up with an equation, not fractions. Okay, set one fraction equal to the other fraction. Cross multiply to get an equation. And then you can solve for x from there. I'm passing out this homework because I'm going to do one of these with you. So I didn't put one like this in the notes. Not quite done yet, so we'll get your phones back when we're done. I'll just put it right here for you. All right, with this first one, I tend to start with my variable first. That doesn't mean you have to. So I'm going to multiply x times 2. What does that give me? 2x. And then I'm going to put it equals. And then I multiply the other 2. What is 7 times 4? 28. Now your equation could say 28 equals 2x. It's the same thing. How would I solve for x there? Divide both sides by 2. And so x is going to have to equal how much? 14. Does everybody agree with that one? Cross multiply and solve? Okay. And then for number 2, again, I like to start with my variable diagonal. So what's 10 times x? Okay. And then equals, what's 19 times 12? 228. And then if I divide both sides by 10, what is that going to give me? A decimal of 22.8. Is everybody okay there? With the proportions? All right, I want us to look at the homework I just gave you. I want to do number 7 with you, just so that you are familiar with how to do those. So on your homework, we're looking at number 7. Oh, I need to do one of the top ones too for you in just a second. Sorry. Let me write this proportion. Okay, that's number 7. Everybody ready? What's different about this proportion? It doesn't have just one number in a part of it, right? So when we start with our cross products, I've got 2 x's here, so it really doesn't matter which way I do this. I'm going to stick to this diagonal first. When I do this, that 16 has got to get multiplied by both the 2x and the 1. And the best way to set this up so that we don't forget that is to put 16 and then put that 2x plus 1 in parentheses so that we don't forget to distribute. Okay, so anytime your proportion has multiple parts to it, you want to take and multiply, but put parentheses around those multiple parts. And then we're going to do the other diagonal. What is 40 times x? 40x, okay? So to solve this equation, I first need you to distribute that 16. I'm going to take that 16 and distribute it to both the 2x and to the 1. What is 16 times 2? So that's going to be 32x plus 16 equals 40x. Then how could I solve that from there? Yep. That's gone. That's 16. What is 40 minus 32? 8. And then I can divide both sides by 8, and we get x equals 2. Okay. So just be careful with proportions that have multiple parts. You need to make sure that each piece gets multiplied. Let's go back up to number 1 because we didn't talk about writing stuff that had units to it. The directions say to write the ratio of the first measurement to the second measurement. So whatever's listed first to whatever's listed second. Number 1 has the diameter of a salad plate. How much is that? What does it say? 8 what? 8 inches. Okay. Let's see. Salad is 8 inches. And then it has a dinner plate. What does it say about the dinner? 1 foot. Do you notice how these are 2 different units? One's measured in inches, one's measured in feet. Can you compare 2 different units? No. Okay. So what we have to do here is a little conversion. What's smaller, an inch or a foot? An inch. So is it smaller to convert, is it easier to convert smaller stuff to bigger stuff or bigger stuff to smaller? Bigger to smaller. So what I need to know first is how many inches are in a foot? 12. So can I rewrite this 1 foot as 12 inches? Does that make sense? Okay, they have to be the same unit. You cannot compare inches to feet. It's like comparing apples to oranges, 2 completely different things. So you have to make sure that they are the same unit before you write your ratio. Okay, and then it says the first one to the second one. What was listed first? the 8, over or to however you're writing your ratio. What's the second one? 12. And then we need to make sure we reduce it so we can use our little calculator there. So what did you say? Yeah, 2 over 3. Make sense? I was about to say that, yeah. All right, so here's the conversions that you'll need for this. In 1 foot, that is 12 inches, okay? So for every 1 foot, you have 12 inches, so you need to make sure you do that. And then the other one is for every pound, 1 pound, everybody knows LB means pound, right? Okay, there are 16 ounces. So 16 ounces for each pound. Everything else is feet and inches. So number 2 is the one that you'll need to do. You're going to change the pounds to ounces and then write your ratios. Anybody have any questions on any of those? Okay, I've done 2 out of the 11 for you, so you got 9 more questions to work on. Make sure your conversions are correct with that top part.